Yes, good afternoon, Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs here on talkSPORT. We're going to turn to motorsport now and the coveted Autosport Young Driver Award. In previous years, it's gone to Paul di Resta, Lando Norris, Jenson Button, David Coulthard won it.
George Russell, Lando Norris, lots of great drivers.
Lots and lots of great drivers. So, to paraphrase Clive Tilsley, remember the name, Deagen Fairclough. We're going to hear from him very shortly. But before that, from Autosport, James Allen, a man we often turn to on motorsport, joins us now. Hi, James.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Andy. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. So, just listing off those names, a coveted award, this.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, it's been going for, very long time now. Back to 1989, David Coulthard was the first ever winner. He didn't do too badly, went on to win 13 Grand Prix, and he was there on hand last night to present the award to Deagen Fairclough. And Deagen Fairclough is the British F4 champion, so that's the first level of the single-seater ladder, if you want. He was a dominant winner of that championship this year, but he was up against very stiff competition with Arvid Lindblad, who, although he sounds Swedish, is in fact British and is on his way to Formula One as well. He's one of the Red Bull juniors, and then Louis Sharp was another one, and really strong field this year. And what it gives them, apart from a £200,000 check, most important thing it gives them is it gives them their first test drive in a Formula One car, which when you're 18 years old is mind-blowing thought that you know that's part of our prize that we give to them. So David Coulthard, Jenson Button, Lando Norris, George Russell, like you mentioned, all of them got their first opportunity to test a Formula One car through this prize, and it set them on their way to becoming F1 stars. Anthony Davidson's another one, Paul di Resta. So it really is something that's been going. We're very proud of it. It's been going since 1989, and it's played a big part in generating British F1 stars.
Well, we can bring you a bit of Deagen collecting his award at the ceremony last night. Here it is.
Honestly, thank you to every single person that has supported me, my mum, my dad, my friends, everyone at the BRDC and even Silverstone for setting up the event again. 35 years is impressive, and to now be on the list with these fantastic drivers. I'm hoping to follow in their footsteps, making it to F1 and being that world champion like Jenson Button. But yeah, the list goes on with the drivers, and honestly, I'm actually so speechless. I'm incredibly thankful.
Good that he thanks his folks there, because if you read any biography of a racing driver, there's a lot of commitment from parents and friends and family and time and finance and everything to get these guys to the top, isn't there?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, Paul. I mean, you think about football parents and they have to drive their kids to the academy or to the training ground and stuff. But it tends to be you hear sometimes they've got to drive them like from London up to sort of Beaconsfield or something. Maybe it's a bit of a schlep, but it's not like having to drive your kid to Scotland to race a go-kart and then down to sort of the south of England, maybe across to Europe as well. The commitment that's involved with these kids racing karts is immense. And I think you could probably hear there the emotion in Deagen's voice when he was up on stage. I mean, he hugged his mum for about 20 seconds when the winner name was announced. It was such a magical moment, and then he was up on stage and he was literally fighting back the tears. And of course, he's doing this in front of an audience that included Bernie Ecclestone, Piero Ferrari, the son of Enzo Ferrari, Stefano Domenicali, the boss of Formula One, most of the F1 teams, 3 or 4 of the F1 drivers like Pierre Gasly and Antonelli were all there last night. It was a room stocked full of motorsport royalty, really. So it's also it's his name is now in the frame. It's up there in lights. It's like an X factor of motorsport, and you win it in front of this sort of star-studded audience.
Before we move on to other matters in F1, I mean, finally with him, are drivers born naturally fast? Is it like football? Is it sort of an innate talent, or is it just having done a lot of it as you're a kid? What makes somebody better than somebody else at that age?
What a brilliant question. It's I think you do find people who've kind of got the genes, if you like. So Max Verstappen, both his dad was an F1 driver and his mum was a top kart racer in her time. If she was around today, she'd get scooped up by F1 Academy and she'd be on a fast track to being an F1 driver in her own right. I think it's that exposure. Some people, make it and some people don't. It's the same with football, really. It's just the more people that go into it at the top of the funnel, the more, that if they stick with it and they've got the talent, there are pathways forward. Of course, the difference with football is you do need a bit of money. If it's not your own money, you need to find sponsors who'll back you. Whereas, if you've got massive talent, you think about someone like Marcus Rashford, who came from a very, very poor background. You managed to get his way to the top because the system scoops you up if you've got that much talent. That doesn't happen so much in racing.
Young drivers are getting drives in F1, as we were seen with Andrea Antonelli, who had to pass his driving test the other day, James, before... I think it probably wasn't a provision. He just couldn't have driven a road car. But
he was speaking about that last night. Actually, Paul, he was saying that it was the most nerve-wracking thing he's done in his whole life, because he knew that with a 24-race Formula One calendar coming up, if he didn't pass his test this week, then he wasn't going to get another chance probably till the summer break in August. So he's like, I really don't need that inconvenience. I need to get my driving test. Just like any 17 or 18-year-old who needs to get mobile on the roads. He's about to jump into a 1,000-horsepower Formula One car in a month's time in testing in Bahrain, and then he's going to be doing, as I say, 24 Grand Prix. Not in any old car either. He's getting into Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes that he's vacated to go to Ferrari.
Yeah, talking of Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, Toto Wolff, I think he was at the Do last night as well, and he was interviewed, and he said, he was asked about what he thought about seeing Lewis in that red outfit and in the car, and he said it's like seeing a divorce, like seeing your wife with somebody new. So he wished him well,
but it's painful to him. I would have thought Piero Ferrari was down the body shop getting a quote for the damage after Lewis crashed it yesterday. Thankfully he was okay, wasn't he?
Yeah, thankfully he was okay. So he'd had a run last week, first outing in Italy, to just familiarise himself. You're not allowed to run in a modern Formula One car. The rules say you can do a limited amount of running in a 2-year-old Formula One car. So that's what he was having to do, and that's mainly from Lewis's point of view, just to get used to all the controls on the steering wheel. There's like 20 different controls on a Formula One steering wheel for all sorts of things, including the gear shift and the clutch, as well as all the different settings. So he has to learn. It's a bit like very, very sophisticated video gaming console, but it's on the steering wheel of his car. And then all the way that Ferrari do pit stops is different from the way the Mercedes do them, and so he's got a whole load of systems to learn, and that's what that was really all about. But yeah, he stacked it. Very unusual for Lewis to crash, and people who are suspicious, and I would not include myself in this, and cynical, would say that his teammate Charles Leclerc was due to have a run in the car after him, and of course with the crash he wasn't able to get out, so Leclerc Leclerc didn't get out on the track. So, but as I say, I'm not one of those cynical people who thinks things like that.
Do you know what? Look, when you've got a new car, but he kept turning the indicators off when he was looking for the windscreen wipers, and he couldn't work the radio. Everything was different. Absolutely. I think it was in a different place. Just finally, and more seriously, really, just bubbling under in the build-up to the season, there's a bit of discontent with the drivers, unhappy that they feel they're being gagged, all sorts of punishments for
it's ridiculous,
criticising the governing body, etc. There's it's not all plain sailing, is it?
No, it's not all plain sailing. We've had a little bit of that the last year or two. So there was a bit of a hoo-ha about banning the jewellery, Lewis Hamilton and his earrings and various things like that, which was a bit of a storm in a teacup. Last season, the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, got stuck into Max Verstappen for swearing in a press conference. And I think you'd probably say that if you read across to other sports, that's something that you generally don't want to see, because, you can imagine like a pre-Champions League press conference. If Arne Slot suddenly sort of dropped an F-bomb, it would be a big problem, for everybody. So I think that's fair enough. But I think we're now into the area where it's getting a bit controversial, which is where they're sort of saying that there's a very wide clauses about sort of almost criticising the FIA, criticising the FIA president, etc. And I think a lot of the drivers are starting to think that's getting into territory that's not really appropriate. They are individuals, and also I think you have to recognise that fans, they want authenticity. They want people to be themselves, and they don't want them to have to speak the party line when they're sort of in their general dealings. I think regards to, Netflix have made a whole business out of people swearing on the radio and during the races, but that's not in the live coverage. You'd never hear anyone swearing in a live TV on Sky, but when you watch the Netflix series, and people do swear a lot, but then that's a communication between the driver and his team, so that's fair enough. So I think you're right. I think the beginning of the season is going to be quite a lot of fights about this as we go into the new season. But at the end of the day, we've got Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari. You're going to have probably the closest Formula One field we've had for 30 years. And I think very quickly everyone's attention will just be on the quality of the racing, because I think it's going to be a really tremendous championship. Lando Norris actually starting, Britain's Lando Norris starting, I think, the season as the championship favourite. And obviously, if Lewis gets a good start at Ferrari, then it's going to be a tremendous championship from a British point of view. And George Russell at Mercedes as well.
Yeah. Just 45 days to go, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you in the build-up and throughout the season, James. As always, thanks very much. Pass on our best to Deagen. We'll be looking out for him.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
There we are. There's James Allen there from Autosport. Well done to Deagen Fairclough, the latest in a long line of
definitely a name
coveted winners of that title of the Young Driver of the Year.